Welcome to Kaizen Time, part of the Blood, Sweat, and Business podcast, where we provide constant improvement to businesses through timely, actionable financial solutions. Do you want answers to your financial questions? Email us at bsp@kaizencpas.com. I'm your host, Mark Valesky. Now let's get started. Welcome to another episode of Kaizen Time. I'm joined by Eric Jorn, a partner here at the firm. Eric, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing excellent. How about you?
I'm doing pretty well, too. So far, 2025 has been treating me all right.
Absolutely.
If it could keep this up the entire year, it'll be my favorite year.
We just needed to be warmer.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, you're a Wisconsin guy, so you probably are wearing shorts till it's
if I can
10 degrees outside.
If I can get away with shorts all year round, I would. I would take that. I would take that anytime.
I get it.
Let's talk about 2025, though. Okay?
Yep.
A lot of what we talk about is budgeting.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about how can we budget and plan for 2025?
Definitely. Well, theoretically, we're kind of a little bit behind the eight ball. This is kind of a reminder of you should have had a budget in place already. Budgeting season is usually October, November. Maybe you wrap up in December. But hey, guess what? It's never too late to install a budget for the year.
And I just want to pause you right there and say, if you say to yourself, oh, I should have a budget, that's already bad because yes, you should.
Yeah.
But it never hurts to get started. It's just like an exercise program or anything like that. Just have something already.
Yeah, just because you didn't start on time in 2025 with a budget doesn't mean you should just blow the whole rest of the year off.
Well, I'll try again.
I guess I don't need it.
I'll put a calendar event for 2025 October and do it right this time.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then you got to ask yourself, why wouldn't I have a budget right now? And most of the times, I don't know where to start.
Very fair.
So when we're thinking about budgeting, why would we budget? Right. So budgeting is one of the few ways we can hold ourselves financially accountable for what we plan to execute for the year. Right. So we usually come into the year setting goals. So you set your goals. What are we going to accomplish as an organization for 2025? And based on what we want to accomplish, we're going to create some goals, some measurements, and some of those might be, say, revenue and profitability goals. So if we want to achieve those, right, we need to plan accordingly. How are we going to get there, right? Are we going to generate that revenue we needed to get there? And how do we control our expenses? And to hold ourselves accountable to achieving that goal, use a budget. Without a budget, you kind of are just, hoping that you make it there by the end of the year. The budget is a month-by-month plan of this is what I'm going to bring in the door, and this is what I'm going to spend to bring in that revenue.
I want to pause you for a second, Eric. What does a budget look like? Is it more or less a spreadsheet? I mean, do we have a template? Like if somebody said, man, Eric, where do I start? Would you just be like, email, budget spreadsheet?
Yep. So there's, I'd say 3 different ways.
Okay.
One of them would be a spreadsheet, right, where we would take a month-by-month profit and loss, and then you work to adjust the numbers to being what you're going to budget for the year. And then you're going to have a blank column to fill in that says, here's what we actually did. And then also another column that calculates the difference of what I did for what I had budgeted versus what I actually did and how I actually performed. So the most basic way is a spreadsheet. You could take it one step further. In certain versions of QuickBooks Online, specifically QuickBooks Online Advanced, has a budgeting feature in it, and you can add the data within there. Now, there are some clients that we actually act as their fractional CFO for, and we manage their budget, and we work with them to reforecast evenly or regularly throughout the year. So what that looks like is we use a third-party reporting software that really allows us to create maybe some better predictive analytics, a little bit better visualization of budget versus actual, especially with companies that maybe have some more complexities, multi-entity, multi-location, things like that. But we use that third-party reporting software to really harness in that budget, and allows us, again, to adjust it pretty easily and update our projections throughout the entire year.
Let me ask you something. Budgeting, is that done by department? too? Like how far should this be broken down?
Yeah, let's step back to more of the budgeting process. So in a large organization, a budget is not just done by, in a small organization. Let's start here.
It's just one thing, right?
Hey, I'm a small business owner. Maybe I got a handful of employees. I'm owner operator. I'm probably writing the budget all myself. And I'm going to break that down probably just off my profit and loss statement. So I'm going to have my revenue, my cost of goods, and here's my operating expenses for the year.
As a small business owner, that is exactly what it looks like. Sometimes it's done on a napkin.
Exactly. Now, as your organization grows, you might have people that control certain functions within your business or your organization, right? So you might look to your, say, sales and marketing director to come up with their budget for the year for that department based on, hey, I want to bring in X amount of new revenue. Here's what our expected costs are to bring in that new revenue from our sales and marketing function. We might have, say, general managers or facility managers that are responsible for the budget for maybe a singular location outside of maybe that corporate overhead expense. So they might be expected to budget for capital expenditures, repairs and maintenance that are planned. This is my staffing needs that I have. So you can actually get very sophisticated with a budget, or you can drill it down to a pretty basic thing and say, hey, here's what I did last year. I expect 5% revenue growth. I expect 5 or 10% expense growth here, but we're going to cut back on some of these things and just really kind of update it at a very high level view. Or some take it, you go through your activity in each expense account for the past year and you say, okay, I'm going to incur this expense. No, this one's going away. This one increased, and you update that and you have it really, really precise. So,
and really this is why you keep track of the numbers over the years so that you can forecast and look back.
Again, right. If you're just doing your books in 2020 for 2024 and 2025, chances are you're not really going to end up finding time to create that budget for the current year.
Yeah. So I was going to say is the other types of budget. Sorry, we kind of got off track. One of them is a spreadsheet. What do the others look like?
Yeah. So outputs for the other ones. So inputs are generally always going to be on maybe a spreadsheet inside of QuickBooks Online. Their budgeting template is like an open field that you fill things in, and then you can run a PDF report for the result. If you're building it purely out of an Excel spreadsheet, it looks like an Excel spreadsheet. Within our fractional CFO program, it does give you more visualizations.
Yeah.
Words are hard.
It's a pretty chart, I think, is what you're trying to say.
It makes it, yes. And that does help people interpret data in different ways. So yes, it has visualizations along with just your normal data PDF of here's my budget versus actual. So all three different methods can create different outputs for you to analyze and make decisions on.
Okay. What else would you say is really going to be key to making this budget work?
Yeah, I mean, again, right, depending on how tight you want to sit or tight you want to align with your goals might dictate how much effort you need to put into it, right? So I talked about the budget creation process. You can do a very high-level budget creation. If you're like, I really don't know how this year is going to go, you can create a very high level one, right? Like, hey, let's base it on last year. I want to increase here, decrease here, increase here. If you want to be very precise, right, you can go down by each individual expense vendor, whoever it may be. I have contracts with these. I know I need to include this stuff. You can make it very predictive, very, very precise. Again, right, cost benefit. The more time you put into it, the better the data you're going to have, probably the more realistic that is. But what's most important out of this whole thing is what do you do after you create the budget, right? What do you do with it?
Oh, I think I might know. Ideally stick to it.
Yes. Well, that's...
Please tell me I'm right.
A very basic answer, right, is yes, you stick to the budget, right? And what does that look like? How do you successfully stick to a budget? And that's actually the most difficult part about this whole process. Creating a budget is easy. So when if you want to stick to the budget, here are a few things. Obviously, you need to drive the revenue, right? That's very important because if you can't drive the revenue and your budget relies on you driving revenue and it doesn't happen, either you have to accelerate activities in future months. So meaning, hey, if I'm behind in sales this month, I really got to push the next month to catch back up to get back on track. So, and I guess from an expense standpoint, it's similar, right? Hey, if I overspent here, now I'm forced to make some decisions to cut some expenses or to delay some expenses to remain on budget, on task. It actually kind of dovetails a little bit with the profit first mentality of, profit first is kind of like bank account budgeting, right? So if I ran out of money in my operating expense account, well, guess what I need to do? I need to call that vendor and say, I'm going to pay you next month. Mm-hmm. And then next month, you got to find an expense to cut to give you enough money to pay the vendor you didn't pay last month. Well, budgeting kind of works the same way, except you're still probably paying your vendors. But it's your role is to find another expense to cut than to remain on budget. Again, it's meant to be for accountability purposes, right? And if I have a significant event. And here's the thing, I talked about reforecasting your budget, so replanning what's going to happen for the year. A trap that people do get in is they will, instead of being accountable to the budget, they'll continue to reforecast every time. So instead of saying, hey, I need to change things in future months to get back on track, I'm just going to move the goalpost. And it happens all the time. Now, there are very important things that are reasons why you might reforecast, right? Say one of your key people left. You have a general manager and they leave. That's going to cause major disruption to the business. And it makes sense that you need to change. Like, otherwise, if you're just following where it was and you have a material change like that, it's going to become irrelevant. There's no point to have that budget and track it and follow it. Maybe there was a great acquisition opportunity that came up and I acquired another location. Well, that's going to change our budget dramatically as well. So significant events like that.
So those are legitimate times to reforecast.
Correct. Not just because you don't like how you've been executing or you don't want to be accountable to the budget. And that is the key, right?
Being accountable to
that budget.
One thing I kind of want to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, you can make the budget whatever you want. You want an aggressive budget, make it an aggressive budget. You want a very, hey, this is going to be a chill year because we don't know what's going to end up happening. That's fine. Yeah. Really what the budget's doing is, if I'm playing aggressive, it's making sure that you're staying on task to be aggressive, to pay for that. Exactly, right? It is meant to keep you on track to hit the goals that you said, I'm going to accomplish these goals. Right. So it's saying, if you're going to play aggressive, you're staying that aggressive. Exactly. Love that. Eric, anything else you want to say before we wrap up? Yeah, once again, it's not too late. You probably spent a lot of time thinking about how the next year is going to go. What am I going to change? What am I going to do? Put it on paper and hold yourself accountable to execute that. Thank you very much, Eric. Thank you. You've been listening to Kaizen Time, part of the Blood, Sweat, and Business podcast. If you like what you heard, subscribe and leave a 5-star review. This podcast has been brought to you by Kaizen CPAs Plus Advisors, providing advisory and accounting services to help you grow your business. Learn more at kaizencpas.com or email us at bsb@kaizencpas.com.